And we're actually going to jump in right now and take a look and see how this works in practice. So what I'll do is I'll flip over out of my presentation real quick. I'm already technically logged into DataTools Pro. And so if you haven't seen or not aware coming into this webinar what DataTools Pro is, it's basically a connected app. Actually, I'll go ahead and log out. DataTools Pro is a connected app. It uses your Salesforce organization not only to authenticate and authorize access to some of your Salesforce metadata, but it also connects directly into Salesforce to extract meta information. So I'll just quickly log in again. I do happen to be logged into my Salesforce org already, so I don't get prompted to log in. But if I was not logged in, it would prompt you with the Salesforce login page. So as a Salesforce connected app, we have access only to your metadata, not to your actual data. So in other words, customer records, customer name, PII, all that stuff, we don't connect to any of that. We only pull in the meta information. So if I go to metrics, if you log into DataTools Pro, you're going to see a blank screen. In my case, I happen to have a list of metrics that I'm already managing for DataTools Pro. So let's say in this scenario, you want to assemble a metrics glossary for your marketing organization. You can click on this little magic icon. It's going to automatically call Salesforce and bring up a list of all of the dashboards in your Salesforce org. In my case, we literally just launched our Salesforce org about 3 weeks ago. We did our data migration, which is a whole separate webinar that we'll talk about later. But we did our data migration. We're in Salesforce. So if you sign up for DataTools, now we have that tracking. And so in this case, I use my DataTools activation dashboard. Now, I'll stop here for 2 seconds. In this case, I'm having to pick and choose what dashboards I use to current like self-service dashboards to manage and monitor activations. In reality, you shouldn't have to pick out what dashboards you want to analyze, because for a typical Salesforce org, you may have hundreds of dashboards and reports. And as a Salesforce admin, you have no clue what's actually being used. You can ask the business users, business stakeholders, what they use and what they manage and what they monitor. But in reality, you should just automatically know based on utilization what the most important dashboards are. And that is something that we are actively working on so that you can track and understand adoption of reports and dashboards and use that data as a feedback loop to what is important and what you should be tracking. But nonetheless, in this case, we do have to take that step to know what the most important dashboards are. I click Analyze Dashboard, and what DataTools Pro will do is it will simply roll through that dashboard and tell us, okay, there's a single report in here. We go to step 2, where we're actually going to analyze all of the meta information inside of those dashboards. And we're doing more than just looking at what the widgets are doing. We're looking at the underlying reports. We're looking at the filtering. If you are a data professional, you'll understand that we're defining facts based on report filters. So if activations is based on a activation date and we're counting the number of records that we have activated, we're using all of the metadata in the report to correctly infer and dictate what is the activation fact. Now, if I have 8 widgets worth of data and you can click more info and start to understand how we're pulling definitions. But if we go to step 3, what we're doing now is we're going through a more involved batch process, and it will tell you and explain what it's doing. But it usually takes about a minute, and we are actually rolling through all of this information. We're generating recommendations. We're analyzing, and this is where some AI comes into play. We are using AI to do the human reasoning. If I have 20 dashboard widgets across 10 reports, we're looking for those patterns that I had mentioned, where you have multiple versions of the truth, where maybe you have 2 of the same metric that are simply sliced by a different dimension. In other words, maybe I have activation by state, activation by role, activation by lead source. At the end of the day, it's just an activation. So a lot of that kind of logic and human reasoning is a part of that process. In this case, the metric analyst will now make a series of recommendations. The recommended metrics basically took the 8 dashboard widgets and it distilled it down to 5 unique metrics. And so this is where the human in the loop comes. By all means, data tools and the AI capability will make recommendations. It's up to you as the user to then take action. And there's really 3 actions that we can take. One is we can ignore recommendations. So if I say what activation rate we can ignore, weekly leads by status, that's not a metric. And by doing that, data tools actually keeps track of what you've ignored. In the current version, we do not use the ignored facts when you run this process multiple times. But in the future, we will use the ignored facts in the feedback loop so that you're not having to do the same task over and over again. And then let's say that data tools happens to be a metric that we already understand. So another action that you can take is we can actually go ahead and merge a recommendation. Either we can take 2 recommendations and merge them together. That's why I selected 2. Or we can take a recommendation, acknowledge that, oh, that's maybe an additional alias, meaning that data tools pro signups and activations may mean the same thing. They don't in this case. But if you did have 2 metrics that mean the same thing, you can actually merge a recommendation together. Or we can simply accept either by clicking plus or clicking add, we can actually add a new metric. And so once you're done, you can just mark it as complete. And then we request like a thumbs up, thumbs down so that we know, did this work? And then right now we do request additional instructions, and this goes to our development team so that we can use this for continuous improvement. But we also look to potentially allow you to fine tune, and I use that word broadly, not fine tuning the way if you are an AI guru on this call or on the webinar, I'm using fine tune just generically. But nonetheless, you can actually, in the future, we are looking at ways to where you can make subtle tweaks to how the AI potentially rolls through your meta information. And so let's mark this as complete so we can get out of here. We'll give it a thumbs up. Thank you, worked great. Feedback.